son is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. I'm your host, Sean Big Poppa Williams. With me, as always, is the Liehr Jet, Jamie Liehr, and good old dial-up himself, Adrian Woodruff. This week, we are at Darlington, the track too tough to tame for the Bojangles Southern 500.
Darlington is a 1.366-mile egg-shaped oval that races a lot like a short track. These drivers aren't going to be afraid to move each other out of the way this week because there's going to be a lot on the line as we get closer to the chase. We'll be going 367 laps in the Palmetto State, and these drivers will actually be racing throwback paint schemes. So all the 40 drivers in the field will be racing paint schemes that remind us of NASCAR's rich history.
Love the throwback paint schemes. But interesting facts here, everybody, is during the rich history here at Darlington, the following wins have all come from the top 5 starting positions, which is really important this weekend. The first position has won this race 20 times, second starting position 17, third position 13 times, fourth position only 8 times, and then fifth position 11 times, which is a total of 69 combined total wins out of 112 races. So what that breaks down to is that's 61.6% of all the races here at Darlington have all come from that top 5 position. During last year's race, the Bojangles Southern 500, we had 18 total cautions. The duration of the race was over 5 hours long, and this was also the most drivers finishing on the lead lap in Darlington history, which was crazy fact. So,
right, and after Hurricane Hermine disrupted all activity Friday, we should be rain-free for both practices on Saturday and for all 367 laps Sunday night on NBC. We're on the main network this time, boys, at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We got a lot of good racing action. With the rain out, guys, we have a little bit to talk about, but most of it's going to be track history and current performance. So with that said, let's get into the burning rubber picks. Liehr?
burning rubber in Darlington, baby!
All right, Adrian, who you got for us, buddy?
Yes, sir. As we talked about the throwback paint schemes, this driver is going to be running a tribute to Cale Yarborough in the number 4 Busch Beer Chevrolet. That's right. I'm going to take Kevin Harvick in the number 4. He's the most expensive driver on DraftKings at $10,600, and he's really going to hurt your lineups when you try to throw him in there. But just listen to me, guys, and bear with me because I think Kevin Harvick is the play you want to make because this is going to – I just think it's going to boil down to dominator points. And as we've seen in 2016 and previous years, it's the same situation like we had at Bristol. There's a kind of a high lap count, and it's kind of a driver who's not afraid to go out there and get those fastest laps and those laps led. And usually it's someone that costs a lot, but he is actually a value play. And we've talked about that in previous weeks, where a driver can be pretty expensive but still be considered a value play. Since Hurricane Hermine came through, we're going to be setting the field on owner points. That means starting in P1. That means he's going to get the first pit stall selection. But what that also means is he's going to get to choose what lane he restarts the race in, what lane he starts the race in. And I think he's going to get a jump and get out in clean air and start accruing those fastest laps and those laps led, those dominator points like I just referred to. Kevin Harvick is the 2014 winner of the Southern 500, and he actually has top 5 finishes in the past 3 races here. He's just a driver that I think he's on a whole other plateau than these other guys that he's racing around. And, there's different tiers in NASCAR as we look at it. And in my opinion, Kevin Harvick is the upper echelon of the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. And if you're, a young kid that's trying to follow NASCAR, you want to grow up and be like Kevin Harvick. And I just think even drivers that are going to be racing against Kevin Sunday night are going to wish they were him because that car is just going to be so fast. Last year in this race, him and Brad Keselowski had the battle of all ages, battling for the win here. And then Carl Edwards snuck into victory lane past both of those guys. But I just don't see a way that Kevin Harvick's not going to pick this guy. He took that number 4 Busch Beer Chevy into victory lane at Bristol. I see the same thing happening this week. It just seems like an easy play in my opinion. People are not going to play him because he costs too much. But trust me, Kevin Harvick will fully pay off his salary this week. And I'm going to roll with Mr. Happy, Kevin Harvick.
Has the biggest opportunity to be one of the best dominators this weekend. I'm not going to rehash everything, but when it comes down to it, 2014, he went 1-1 with 238 laps led. So, he has just that same potential domination here. And even with all of his starts that he's had here, he has had total of 19. Recent history, he's started in the top 10, and each time he hasn't finished any worse than fifth in the last 3 races. So even in, let's say he finishes fifth this weekend, based off of the points that you get for the finishing position, plus you know that he's going to lead laps, he's going to have fastest laps. And like we've talked about, he is the most expensive available on DraftKings, but he's going to be worth every single penny this weekend. So you definitely have to make lineups, with him, and majority of them with him. But do be yourself smart, and if you do play multiple lineups in some of these tournaments they have going on this weekend, just get a little bit of variation without them too, so that way you can cover yourself in for that just in case.
Yeah, I mean, guys, I think you pretty much said it all. I am on board, boys, and guys, every lineup I've started with, like when I've been doing my preliminary construction before we get to see these practices, that's where I start, is with Harvick, and I just move on from there. And we'll talk more about the other guys I have on most of my lineups coming up from here in the show in a little bit. But he's just the right play for exactly the reasons that you both said. I mean, not a finish outside the top 5 in the last 3 is just phenomenal. But with that said, Liehr, who do you have to burn some rubber, man, since we're all on Harvick?
My burning rubber pick this week, boys, going with my boy in the throwback Miller Lite, number 2, Brad Keselowski. Keselowski and the number 2 team, they are starting from the second position this week. They've currently sit second in the driver's standings. Obviously, we know that the race is being started off of owner points this week, but he's tied right now with Kyle Busch in the 2016 season with 4 total wins, which is tops in all of NASCAR right now. Basically, the way that this track lays out for him, he has a great opportunity. Same with Kevin Harvick, to earn those dominator points this week for you. And he will definitely lead some laps and get fastest laps, especially, too, if he can get out in front. And who knows? I mean, we never know what's going to happen with this race. It is one of the longer ones of the season. But on the restarts, if he and Harvick battle it out again this year, it could go back and forth, and we could be talking about 367 laps split into only 2 directions, which, I mean, that's highly doubtful. But you never know what's going to happen. But basically, Keselowski is one of those types of drivers that you definitely just want to own this weekend for sure. Like I said, he was one of the starting dominators last year. When he started from the pole, he led 196 laps last year out of 367. He did finish second. He didn't win, and he is winless here at Darlington as well. So, but his cost is $10,200 this week, and he's definitely going to be well worth your money. My recommendation is to start your lineups Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski. As much as that is a lot of the high money, but I mean that's what you got to have at this race, boys.
Liehr, I couldn't agree with you more, and that's on every lineup that I've been designing so far. He's just the right play here, and as Adrian talked about, Harvick and him had a race to remember last year here, just neck and neck the entire race, trading it back and forth, and honestly, that's the race vision I'm seeing for this race as well, is that's going to go down, possibly even a third car that's out of that leader group creeping in there where we get a split where each car has roughly 100 lead laps. But that's the race vision I see. And just like what we told you at Bristol, you have to set your lineups with the race vision that you have in mind. If you see one guy dominating the whole race, then get off the rest of the guys in the top 5 and try to fish for place differential. But if you have the race breaking down like Liehr and I and Adrian do, you're going to want to be on multiple of these top-end guys. And I think the third one's going to be the guy that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. But let's let Adrian talk first.
I just kind of want to give both sides of this coin because I see it kind of both ways. I kind of see the race vision where Kevin Harvick can go out here and have a great race for the win. But then I also kind of see it as the other side where you're looking at it as in you're going to take 2 guys at the top end, but they're both cost over $10K. And neither one of those guys have any chance to gain place differential. So they both have to split the laps, or they don't necessarily have to split the laps, but you're going to need Brad to at some point get up there and do something. Because if we all see Kevin Harvick is going to be the guy this weekend, we see him that because he's going to lead the laps. Because if he falls back, he's not going to score us enough points to even matter. Same with Brad Keselowski. And the thing with it being set by owner points, these guys above 10K are going to be starting at the front. So, they're obviously the fast cars. That's why they're, first and second in owner points. So, it just makes sense because if you look at the starting grid, it makes sense to kind of look at it as over the course of the 2016 season, they set the field on who's been the best. I mean, they don't account for wins or any of that stuff. It's just total points scored by that car. Mm-hmm. So I think Brad Keselowski and Kevin Harvick are the two best plays because they've been the two best drivers all season long. I'm going to need them to combine to lead a lot of laps this weekend. But that's something that I could definitely see them doing because I'm not really looking at the Gibbs cars this weekend. I'm actually more on the Stewart-Haas guys myself. So I like the Brad Keselowski play because I'm not really trying to spend the money on a Joe Gibbs racing car.
Fair enough. But speaking of Gibbs, we're going to go to my burning rubber pick, and that should surprise no one as Carl Edwards at 10,100. Look, I understand Adrian's going to make the argument that JGR has shipped it in until the chase, and he's going to tell you that they're not even worried about this setups. I'm going to answer back with that's exactly what we heard here last year. And even though we heard that Carl won this race, and if you had him with Keselowski and Harvick, it didn't matter what the bottom part of your lineup was last year because you utterly destroyed this race. But let's get into the reason why I like Carl Edwards. First of all, Darlington is Carlington, baby. This guy loves to tear up this track, and I owe Adrian for that. That is his pun, but I had to use it. Cousin Carl is the defending winner here. He came back from a lap down last year after cutting a tire to push past Kaz and Harvick, who were battling for the lead all race long. Carl is also in that sweet Tony Stewart Eris tribute ride, which by far, guys, is the best tribute of any of the cars. Eris even went and put on world's best modem on the sides. It's hilarious. Love the car. If you haven't seen it, you're missing out. Check it out. But the real reason why I'm on Cousin Carl here is in his races, he has 4 top 5s, 8 top 10s, and 12 races here. Those statistics are absurd. Now, I understand that he's starting from the 3 position, and because of owner points, that's not exactly where you want him. I don't think it matters. If he can lead laps, if he can run at this race like he's capable of, it's not going to matter. But like Adrian said, if he's not going to be a lap leader, if he's not going to finish at least 3rd, you can't own him. So your race vision has to be that Cousin Carl is going to contend for this on the winning level, or don't play him, guys. Adrian?
Yeah, it's just not a play I find myself making this week, and majority-wise, because he does cost 10,100. And if I'm kind of looking in that direction, his teammate Denny Hamlin, guys, is an amazing. He has such an amazing track history here. Denny Hamlin tears up Darlington. And he's actually only 9,600 this week. So I'd like to save the money there and go with Denny Hamlin, maybe get a couple more positions of place differential. But, the way we kind of talked about it is if I'm picking Kevin Harvick, and even if I'm going to go ahead and pair Brad Keselowski, I'm definitely not going to play Carl Edwards on that lineup. I mean, they're just like, it just seems like you got no chance for place differential. And that's, like I said, part of the coin of the, points being set by owner points. Really the way I see the race playing out, I like Denny Hamlin in this position. If you're saving money, even though they overpriced Kyle Larson, I really like Larson and Chase Elliott. There's just so many guys, like those 2 guys had such a good race last week. They're coming in with a lot of momentum this week. I just don't think it's the week for Joe Gibbs Racing to necessarily go out there and win the race. And Carl Edwards throughout his career hasn't necessarily been someone to be a big lap leader. He's kind of a sneaky driver that takes care of his car all race and outlasts his opponents. So it's not necessarily the way I see the race playing out. But Carl Edwards is going to be fast this weekend. I definitely see he's going to be in a competitive top 5 car. But the problem for me is the fact that he's not going to be leading any laps. And that's why I'm just not going to pay 10,100 for Carl this week. But I definitely love the play if you can get up to the front.
Is there really anything for me to comment on there? Basically, I was just going to say, talk about the laps led because that was going to be my point was, I as far as Carl Edwards goes, 10,100 is too expensive for my blood for him. I know he goes kind of under talked about. Wait a second, never mind. Poppa does that every single week. I'm sorry, hold on.
Dude, I didn't even talk about him at all last week, bro.
I had to get my shot.
A little jab, yeah.
But no, as far as Carl Edwards this week, he just doesn't have the potential for me to lead laps and to get those dominator points because even let's say he does this, I know that he won the race last year, but he only led 15 laps last year. So, it's one of those things where, you got to put into perspective how many laps you think they're going to lead, how many fastest laps that they're going to get. And believe me, okay, he's got 12 starts here and only 5 of those starts is he finished outside the top 10. That is darn good stats right there. But I just feel those other two cars are just going to be too dominated for him. And with the pressure of possibility too with restarts, how many restarts that there could be a possibility in this race, I just can't put my money on Carl Edwards. I love the other two guys too much, and then that forces me to stay off of Carl Edwards because I just don't have the money to spend on him.
All right, two quick things before we get into value. One, I would probably choose other people if you guys didn't take my first and second pick almost every week. Two.
That is true. Very true. Good point.
Two, I think you guys articulated exactly why, if your race vision is that there are 3 race leaders, why, if you're willing to spend up, you are going to be on an island with maybe 1% of lineups, right? Like, so if that's your race vision, know that you're going to get awesome ownership percentage there. But if you're going to try to do something like that, you're going to need to find a source of value. And what better than the value segment to get us there? Adrian, value us up, buddy.
Yes, sir. As we continue with the throwback paint schemes, this driver is going to be running the number 14 Coca-Cola Chevrolet. That's right. I'm going to be rolling with Tony Stewart in his last race at Darlington. Last race in the Southern 500. You know this one's going to mean a lot to him, just like all these final races have meant to him over the stretch of the season, as he will retire at the end of the season. But guys, at 7,800, that's just way too cheap for Tony Stewart. I know at the start of the season when he first came back, we thought that pricing was about right, but just the level that Stewart Haas has been on lately, and the fact that they're sharing information with the guy that I think is going to burn rubber and win the race, I don't see any way that team's not going to let Tony know what kind of setup they got into that number 4 car, especially since he's the one that pays for that car to be on the track. I just think that Tony Stewart starting in the 17th position, guys, I see that him finishing in the top 10 very, very easily. I just think that a top 10 is destiny for Tony Stewart this weekend. He has 5 top 10s in the last 9 starts at Darlington, so obviously he can get it done. And Tony's just, he can outsmart a lot of these guys. He's been around and he's seen all this stuff happen and play out. So, on these restarts where a lot of these young guys are going to be trying to get it, those risks, and he might be around at the end. And I just think Darlington might be about survival. And something about this weekend just makes it seem like we're going to have a lot of cautions. We had 18 cautions last year. Why would we not have, over 10 this year? That's just the way I see it. And I actually think that, due to this hurricane coming through and the humidity that's going to be in the air, I think the track is actually going to get hot and slick on Sunday night. And we all know that's the kind of conditions that Tony Stewart is the best in. And I think he might take some of these boys to school. I predict Tony Stewart might finish. He's going to finish about 7th or 8th, in my opinion, the way I see the race playing out. And starting from the 17th position at only 7,800, I just think, like I said, he's just far too underpriced for the experience that you're getting behind the wheel of the number 14 car. And, just with the relationship that he's had with Coca-Cola since the start of his career, he's been a Coca-Cola racing family driver. So this paint scheme also means a lot to him, just for the relationship he's had with Coca-Cola over the years and like a full race Coca-Cola car. So I'm sure he's pretty excited to, get that car on the track and have a good race for all the folks at Coca-Cola that have helped him out throughout his career.
I'm right there with you, man. I love the Tony Stewart play this week. Just ultra value for that guy at $7,800. And here's the other sweet part is he does not have a career win here out of 23 races. So great opportunity to take all those variables and bundle them into one great finish, and that's to take home the victory here at Darlington in his last race with the Coke throwback vehicle. So, but all the factors there, a point in the right direction for Tony. And the other thing is, so he's starting 17th, and then also as far as DraftKings pricing is, he's the 16th most expensive driver at $7,800. So, a lot of value there for Tony. And I'm right there with you. He's got all the experience in the world versus all these other drivers. It's going to, has potential to be a very long race. And he and his team know how to strategize and know what to do to get the best result out of, how the race plays out. So I'm going to have a good amount of exposure on Tony Stewart this weekend just because the value and where he's starting from.
Yeah, you guys all know it's no secret that I don't have strong feelings for Tony Stewart. But I have stronger feelings for my pocketbook and money. And I think he's just the right play this week, especially where he's at. Everything that you guys have provided, argumentative-wise, as to why you want to be on him is just spot on. And I don't really have anything more to add except possibly the fact that there are multiple drivers honoring his former paint schemes might even motivate him to perform even more and get it done on it.
Yeah, you think if Carl Edwards is driving that Home Depot-inspired car in front of him that he's not going to want to pass it and be like, hey, that's my car. I'm not going to let you beat me.
No, but if that Edwards car beats him, it's going to be really funny too. So either way, I think it's a win-win for us as NASCAR fans. Liehr, who do you have for value, buddy?
My value play this week, boys, is I'm rolling with the number 83 BK Racing Orange Crush throwback 1970s version for Matt DiBenedetto, or as I prefer him to call him as, Matty D. Rolling with them this weekend. I'm not taking Matty D because he's going to be a monster and have a top 5 finish. By no means am I predicting that that's going to take place. He's going to be a great place differential beast for you this weekend, especially coming from the 30th position. The best part about Matty D this week is his cost, fellas. It's just crazy. $5,200 for this guy, and that's 7th from the bottom of the salary list on DraftKings. So he's got a top 10 finish at Bristol, which is kind of a similar track. It's a smaller track, and that did happen this year. Obviously, strategy and those other variables came into play in that, but I trust his BK Racing equipment versus the other drivers who are starting lower than him, but also priced lower than him as well. But this pick, like I said, it's not based off of his history here at Darlington because he's only got one start here. But he's going to be a great plug-and-play kind of player, especially for your GPPs, and obviously has a fantastic opportunity to be a really effective place differential producer for your fantasy team this weekend. And, at a $5,200 price point, that gives you the option to roll, the Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, and Carl Edwards play if that's something that appeases you. But this is the type of driver that you're going to have to fill in if that's the strategy that you're going to roll with.
I absolutely love Matty DB. He was my value pick before they stole it from me. One of the reasons why I really love this car is they are all in, basically, from what I've read and what I understand, on actually having the Orange Crush as a sponsor. When you get an actual sponsor on a car that can get behind it, it's a huge moment for BK Racing and for Matty DB. And I love the opportunity. I love where he's starting. I love the price, especially if you're going to try to go up and grab the 3 guys for a race vision of 3 elites leading about 100 laps apiece. He's almost the play that you have to make. And I'm sorry, he's just hands down better than most of those cars in that grouping around him. And that's where I'm settling this week as well, Liehr. So until you took my pick, I was all over it. Adrian, who do you got, buddy?
Just to touch on the Matt DiBenedetto, I think you guys crushed it. I just think it's the right play. I'm sorry. I just think he's the right play, guys. And you guys exactly talked about why. All those other cars around him, they necessarily just don't have the equipment that BK Racing does, in my opinion. If you look at guys like Colwitt and Josh Wise, who that team, kind of struggles to complete races, but, that's just kind of part of the way they operate. But if you get a sponsor like Orange Crush to get behind you, I just think that you're going to really notice the impact that it has on that team more so than if you would have noticed, if it were to happen to Greg Biffle or someone like that. I just think that the funding that they're going to get compared to the funding, that same amount of money given to another team, I think it's going to benefit BK Racing more. I really see a good race for him. And he's had terrible luck this year, guys, other than Bristol. So he's really low on the points. So he has a lot of potential to move up through the field. And if I'm looking down at that, around that price point, Benedetto or Brian Scott. And the good thing about those 2 guys is their ownership will probably be under 8%.
Oh, and with all the cautions here, he's definitely a car that could possibly stay on the lead lap or I'm all over this play with Liehr. That's why I wanted to jump back in and add a little bit more. So for my value, guys, the guys don't know this, but I'm going to give you a little twofer since we didn't cover one of them. And we're going to talk about the killer bees that I think are going to round out your value lineup this week. And the first is Buescher at 6,600, starting 31st. That car is amazing. He's running well better than 31st. Yes, please, at 6,600. That's all you need there, guys. Awesome place differential potential car. The next one is Trevor Bayne, and this one I want to give you a little bit more explanation for. At 6,200, he's just criminally underpriced. Look, I would feel better if he was starting further back than 19th, but I think a top 15 finish for this car isn't out of reach. And remember, last year in this race, he was running top 5 until an unfortunate series of events got him caught up, then he got knocked back, and then Danica took him into the wall, and that ended basically Bayne's day. I think that he makes a great play here, and ownership is going to be extremely low on him. Plus, all indications are that Roush Fenway is unloading every bit of trickery they have to get these cars in the chase. Like this is their last opportunities to do it. I love when teams that are good have their backs against the wall, and when DraftKings underprices them, I'm gonna gobble them up all the time. So like it's not just Bane, it's Biffle. There, I gave you 3 killer bees to play this week, all at value. Biffle being the most expensive at 7,200. Adrian, your thoughts, bud?
I like that. Biffle, Bane, Busher, all 3 Bs, all 3 the killer bees. That's like, honestly, over the past few weeks, I've been using the killer bees a lot in my lineups, and it hasn't really stung me. I'm sorry, I'll stop with the puns. But Chris Busher is a play starting in 31st. He's just got so many positions to move up. And honestly, guys, he's only that low because they weren't getting the funding that they're getting now. When we talk about Trevor Bayne and Greg Biffle and Ricky Stenhouse bringing these brand new race cars to the track and bringing faster cars to the track to try to make the chase, well, guess who Roush Fenway is giving away the brand new cars to just as they're giving away to Trevor Bayne and those guys. They're giving them the Front Row Motorsports for Chris Busher to drive because – Chris Busher may race for Front Row Motorsports, but just know that if Roush ever wanted a 4th car, Chris Busher would be the one that was driving it. And because Roush Chris Busher pretty much still has the Roush contract going on, so he's got plenty of Roush connections. I just think that the funding is there for Chris Busher's team, comparatively to his teammate Landon Castle. Starting 31st it's just a must play in my opinion. I think that's just where you go. Mm-hmm. And like you said with Trevor Bayne at 6,200, he's priced lower than Eric Almirola. And Eric Almirola, I don't think he's found the top 20 since we're heading to the series. It's just not someone that DraftKings just underpriced these guys, and I just don't see a way that they're not going to be the right plays. I love the Busher and the Bayne. I love the Biffle too, honestly.
Yeah, I like that. Killer bees. That's definitely very very thought provoking right there, Poppa. But. No, as far as Chris Busher, you have to be on that play this week. And, as far as his price, 6,600, a few weeks back I said, he was just under 6K. You should play him. Even at 6,600, you definitely should play the truth because the truth is going to come and bring you the points this weekend for sure. So make sure you get on that. But as far as Trevor Bayne, kind of mixed bag on Trevor Bayne. I definitely like Trevor Bayne. But his some of his stats here throw me off just a little bit. But like AW said, they're bringing new equipment and they're trying to get him to push to get into the chase because right now he's sitting at the 17th position and he's just knocking on the doorstep. And for him to get a win here would be awesome. I would love to see Trevor Bayne get a win here and basically solidify himself into the chase. But I just. $6,200 also is enticing for him, but I would much rather play like the Benedetto, Chris Busher, and then fill the rest of it from there. And then Greg Biffle. How could you not like the Biff this weekend in the Hooters throwback car? Doesn't get much better than that. The paint scheme is sick. I'm glad and I'm happy that they brought it back, to see it. Biffle starting from the 23rd position. 22nd, 23rd position. I know he's $7,200, but definitely has great place differential here, has good history here at Darlington, and should definitely be in your lineups as well.
I think we're all in agreement, guys. We just threw out 5 value guys for you to take a swipe at this week. So now it's time for everybody's favorite segment where we talk trash. Adrian hates that part where I say that. On drivers or on the teams or on DraftKings pricing. Or maybe that driver that we like is just terrible at this track. Adrian, who do you have going to the garage this week, buddy?
Well, I only hate that you say that because I can't talk trash about any of these drivers because I respect it so much because little 5-year-old me wanted to grow up and be them. I don't care if I'm, running the equipment Josh Wise is running out. I want to be out there. So
right.
Those guys out there. But this week I'm going to take Austin Dillon, guys. It's just because he's overpriced in my opinion at $8,200. Also, because of the success that team's had over the course of this season, he's actually starting in the 12th position. And in my opinion, based on if we're looking back at like the tier of, I think Austin Dillon looks at, in that ratio of just, there's so many elite drivers in front of him. And then it's him. And then, you have your guys like Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney, who have been really fast and actually been running way faster than Austin this year, but have actually just crashed out and not had the consistency that Austin has. And I just don't think this is the week that Austin Dillon's going to be a play, especially at 8,200. Because if you're going to get those guys at the top, like Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski and Carl Edwards, you can't put in an Austin Dillon and then still fit in the other guys that you want. So I'm just kind of going to play guys like Tony Stewart around this price point. I'm not really looking at Austin Dillon to have too much of a success this weekend. Maybe finish in the top 15. This is just not going to pay off his salary. You're going to kind of need him to get over 40 points. And he's only had one race over 40 in the recent history, past Michigan. This is the first Michigan. So I just not a play I find myself making. Austin Dillon will have a good run, but I think it's just going to be a top 15 that's going to take down a few.
Yeah, man, $8,200, that's the biggest thing that jumps out to me when you talk about Austin Dillon this week. $8,200, it's the almost the highest that he's been in DraftKings in a long, long time. And on top of that, I do feel a little crispy burn on my arm because I was burnt a little bit last week by being on him pretty much everywhere. But, top 12 finish, top 12 start here in the 12th position. It's just for where he's at, his history here at Darlington. I just can't do it specifically more on the price point. But I just have a sneaking feeling he's just going to kind of fade into the oblivion this weekend, just because there's so many good drivers up in the top 10, and he's going to be battling for those positions. And he just doesn't have it here for me, and I just like other options, specifically more around his price point.
Yeah, dude, you guys know I love Austin Dillon, but Maverick ain't been right for a long time, and he hasn't won you money for a long time. And that's problematic for me. Even though I like a driver, like the equipment he's in, there's just something not right with that team. And until the ship gets righted, I'm not going to play him, much less when he qualifies 12th, based on owner's points. And I think it's just one of the stone cold easiest fades you can make this weekend and not have to worry about it. And it's one of those fades that if I'm wrong about, I'm okay getting burnt by it.
Yeah. The other reason is, he's been chasing too many planes on his crotch rocket. So, it's been taking up too much of his time.
nice Top Gun. Way to take that to the next Top Gun level. I appreciate it there, Goose. All right. All right, Liehr, who do you have going to the garage this week, buddy?
My going to the garage, guys, is somebody I definitely love, but rolling with Jeff Gordon. Going to the garage this week. So obviously today we had some major news break in NASCAR. But Dale Earnhardt Jr. is going to be out of the number 88 for the rest of the season. Obviously, us here at the Rubbin' Is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show want to wish you, Dale, nothing but the best. I know you're watching at home. We appreciate your love.
Big fan.
And, we hope you get back healthy, man. That's the most important thing. And the 88 will be here. It'll be here waiting for you. Just get yourself back to healthy and back to normal and back to doing what you love to do. But, Jeff will be driving the number 88 for 4 more races this season. And then Alex Bowman's going to be stepping in for 8 races to finish out the 2016 season. But as far as back to Gordon here and Darlington, Gordon obviously has the most history here. But he's got 7 career wins here, 19 top 5s, 23 top 10s. His most recent and best race that he's had here has been a little while. It's been all the way back to 2010, where he had some legitimate statistics here, where he started second and finished 4th, and he led 110 laps during that race. But 2010, boys, that's 6 years ago. Between that time, it's been hard to find some real good data on him, but he's being thrust into this situation. Obviously he's been doing it for about a month now, so he's getting kind of back into it. But he starts this week at the 15th spot. And like I said, the data basically tells you that he's got an uphill battle here to lead laps, to lead fastest laps, because all those guys up in front of him, and to, earn some place differential on top of that. But the other main factor here too, fellas, is he's just too expensive. He's $8,700. And I just don't like his fantasy value this weekend. I love Jeff Gordon, but just do not like his fantasy value for your team if you want to take home some money this weekend.
Yeah, dude, I feel like it's sacrilegious, that I'm agreeing with you that you shouldn't play Jeff Gordon this week. From both a NASCAR fan standpoint and from a fantasy standpoint, it just feels weird to me to say such a thing. But yeah, honestly has nothing to race for. Like, what I am intrigued at is there is some nice place differential, but those cars are not what they should be. I'm sorry, those Hendrick cars are still not where I want them to be able to play them. And he's filling out a sponsor obligation to make the sponsors happy for Hendrick, who's done so much for him. And I understand that and I appreciate it. But as a fan, I would rather see this opportunity go to Bowman. And I wish I wasn't seeing him come back in a ride that was subpar for his talent. And that's what's bothering me, and that's why I won't be on him this week as well.
I don't necessarily consider the ride to be subpar, and I think the 88 car is one of the elite cars in the field, and it's definitely a chase contending race car. They just, having so many different drivers in the seat, they're just not going to be in the chase this year. But the thing with Jeff Gordon is, like you said, there's just not that much on the line for him this weekend. His cost is so much. And if you think about all the drivers he's going to have to pass to get up there and lead any laps or even to finish in the top 10, I just think those guys are just going to be way more aggressive than he is. And if you really think about it, are you going to play Jeff Gordon or would you just play his teammate Chase Elliott, who's coming off the best race of his career? It's just, you play Chase Elliott in that situation. And $200 less. So, in my opinion, 2 weeks in a row sending Jeff Gordon to the garage, it's a shame. But, it's just something that it's the right play, honestly. You just can't play Jeff Gordon. This isn't 2007. I mean, I just feel like Jeff Gordon isn't in the right situation to be successful in good equipment, but necessarily, his job is to go out there and make sure that car finishes the race and to take care of it. And it's not necessarily to go out there and move a guy to finish top 5. And also, I just wanted to, personally send out, my best wishes to Dale Earnhardt Jr. I hope you come back soon and stronger and better than ever, man. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was definitely my favorite driver growing up as a kid and still is, and I look forward to him coming back very soon.
Yeah, I want to send my well wishes to Dale Jr. as well. And like I said, that 88 car before Dale got out of it with the concussion was having issues all year long. I just don't know that they righted that ship. But regardless, another car that we have going to the garage this week, guys. And I know it's a cheap out, but his price once again tempts you, as it does me, is Casey Mears at $6K. The usual reason I dislike Mears is the usual reason why I'm sending him to the garage yet again. He's so cheap that you want to play him, but his track history is probably best surmised by the phrase dumpster fire. In 14 races here, he has a whopping 3 top 20s. That's ridiculous. Like in that many races, he should have stumbled into the top 20 at least 5 times, right? But he doesn't even have that. I would say at $6K, don't be on him. Don't get tempted. Like, play the better plays in DiBenedetto and Busher, like in Bain and Biffle. Find the money or save the money and just do not play Mears this week.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. It handicaps you if you pick Casey Mears because he's right in that zone where you could actually get a legitimate driver in Trevor Bain who actually is still fighting to get into the chase. Or you could, pay down and get a guy like Matt DiBenedetto or Michael Annett who are like pretty much minimum price and they're going to allow you to pretty much get anyone on the top end that you want. Casey Mears is like necessarily. I just think it's just like if you're making the Casey Mears play, it's because you've got so many lineups and you literally can't fit anyone else that you've already played, so you just put Casey Mears in there as a variation. I honestly, it's just not a play I'm going to make. Poppa described it perfectly. You either go 2 ways. You go up to pay for Trevor Bain and those guys, B's, or you go down and you try to play Matty B. It's just as simple as that, the way I see it this week.
All I'm going to say is ditto. I'm not going to waste our viewers' time.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps up the Going to the Garage segment. And now is this time for the segment that we're really proud of, where we put together a lineup. Guys, remember, this lineup isn't for you to copy. It's for you to see the proper process of thinking out a lineup and what you should be going through. And we do it with all 3 of us. That way you get 3 heads thinking at a normal lineup. All right, guys. We've got a smaller lug nut than normal, so we're jumping in the 250 pedal to the metal $4 tournament where it's $50K to first. Now this is more of a lottery tournament where there's 73,529 people in it, so we'll need to be a little bit unique to get a lineup in it that can win.
Hopefully we'll have all 5 lug nuts on that wheel.
There you go. All right, guys. Are we just going to start off this lineup with Harvick and Keselowski like we did in the show?
Yep.
All right. Since Edwards was the point of contention, and I understand why, we have no problem leaving him off of here. Where would we go next? Or do you want to put him on there and think?
In my opinion, we pair Tony Stewart with those two guys since Tony Stewart can get us the place differential.
All right.
And also, like the Tony Stewart, like after you play Tony Stewart, like if you start looking at the killer bees, and I think you need to start looking and then see how much money you have left.
Oh, dude, you can fit both killer bees on and be completely fine. You'll have money left over if you put, well, actually you can put all three killer bees on it, but you just want Biffle and Busher, or do you want Bane and Busher?
Well, I mean, what do you think, Liehr? I definitely I think Tony Stewart definitely needs to be on there, and then I would go, like if I were building a lineup, I would go to the killer bees, but what do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, in my mind, I'm sitting Harvick, Keselowski, Tony Stewart, Chris Busher.
All right. Well,
like
all right, with Biffle on it, it leaves 7,600 remaining. If we take Biffle off and just have those four, that will leave 74 with two drivers.
What do you think about not playing Biffle and playing Jamie's guy Matt DiBenedetto?
I mean that'll free up even a lot more money. So let's go ahead and do that for the viewers and show them how much money that actually frees up. $9,600, boys and girls.
It's literally a no-brainer. Like it gave you exactly enough money to play the guy I want.
Yeah, and that would probably be who? The number 42?
No. This guy drives the number 11.
No, he's really, like, if he's on a JGR, he wants Hamlin this week. And I understand it and like it.
Hamlin is my JGR guy, and if you look at track history, Denny Hamlin has a really hard time not finishing on the top 10 here.
No, like, basically.
So here's where I would swerve from you is my own personal pick. If I had the choice, I would roll the last week's winner in
I love that.
Larson.
You like that.
Because he has real good history here at Darlington. I know he hasn't raced here very much, but he's solidified that spot in that chase. I don't think they're going to let up on the gas. I think they want to take the energy and the positive momentum that they gained from last week's first career victory and roll that into the chase. And I think even though they're starting from the 16th spot, with his price point, I love his upside a lot more than all these other drivers down here, in middle teens, because not only does he give you that possibility of place differential, but if he gets up front and gets the win and can throw in maybe a few laps led and some fastest laps in there. I mean, obviously you'd have to have some fastest lap if he's going to move up to the front, barring whether that comes from a caution or not. But I think that Larson, would be a great pick there. But, that's just my own personal preference.
He ran top 5 here last year in the mellow yellow car and actually I think he actually led some laps here last year, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he led like 20 some. But
so I think Kyle Larson is a great player in that position, but I think it's also going to be someone that a lot of people are going to be on because he did with the rest.
I was
last week.
Yeah, I agree.
But I also want to say, I think a lot of people are kind of looking at this and after they watch the show, and they're kind of wondering why we haven't mentioned Kyle Busch, why we haven't mentioned Matt Kenseth, why we haven't mentioned Martin Truex Jr. and all these other top end guys that people are really wondering why we're not picking. The reason is, guys, it's just the fact that we know who the fast guys are here, and to be honest, it's not necessarily a week that I consider spending up for Kyle Busch. I think he just cost too much this week because I want Kevin Harvick on my teams, and I'm willing to do anything to get him on my teams. And I might switch out Brad Keselowski and put Kyle Busch on there and some variations like that. But in my opinion, if you're at that price, I just like the guys, like we said, Kyle Larson. I like him way better than Kyle Busch starting 17th.
It's this simple.
I'd rather have a guy starting 17th than a guy starting 6th.
Well, it's this simple. To get up to Truex, Kyle, Carl, Joey, or Truex, you have to get rid of Tony Stewart. It's the only option, and value buy down again.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'm willing to do that.
Right. But that's literally in order to do that, you have to.
We think Tony Stewart is we think Tony Stewart's going to be such a good play. It's just not necessarily something
that's what I'm doing anyway.
Too much. I really, honestly, I would love to just lock in what Jamie said and lock in the Kyle Larson.
Oh, dude, that's what we're going to do. But before I do it, I wanted to mention one other driver that I love as well here. I would also play Chase Elliott and have more salary remaining and be comfortable with it. That would leave you $1,100, and there's not going to be a lot of people that are going to want to leave that $1,100 in tournaments. Just a heads up, I will probably have this exact same lineup with Elliott in it as well. So,
just a few other things, boys. I know we're running maybe almost to our hour. But
there, 1 second before we get there, let me just recap this team for everybody, and then we'll do that. We got Harvick, Kozlowski, Stewart, DiBenedetto, good old Matty DB, Chris Buescher to round out the Killer Bees, and Kyle Larson, last week's winner. And we have $500 left on the table. Liehr, what did you have to add, buddy?
So some guys that we did not discuss or talk about that I feel is pertinent because it is like we talked about at the beginning. You know, majority over 60% of the wins have come from that top 5 starting positions. So 2 guys we didn't talk about: Kurt Busch and Joey Logano. What are your guys' thoughts on those 2 drivers?
As far as Kurt Busch and Joey Logano go, they're just not necessarily plays I find much about the guys that we really like this week. You know, the young guns. If you look at Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, also really like Ryan Blaney. Those young guys look to get it done. But spending my money on Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski most of the time. And I don't find myself spending the money on Joey Logano or Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch, one, because I don't see that he's going to get up there and lead me laps. He's really never been that kind of driver. Not since here I am with Roush has been a driver to just go up there and take the lead and amass a lot of laps led. And I think that's what he's going to need to do comparatively to Kyle Larson, who has guaranteed place differential on his side, who is only $100, $200 more than Kurt Busch at $8,900. And then Joey Logano, I like his teammate Brad, but it's just it's Joey's worst. Probably one of the worst among the elite drivers at this track. His average finish isn't very good. He's not really found very much success at Darlington. And I'm not going to spend over $10K for a guy who hasn't really found his way yet.
Yeah, I find it weird that I'm all about his teammate and not about him. But, I mean, I think it's mostly just bad circumstances here. But, I mean, I'll have a few. But I might have 1 or 2 Kurt Busch sprinkled in. But it's... I don't know. I'm not feeling it this week. And like Adrian said, just not a lap leader here, and neither is Logano. And that's what I'm going to have out of guys that expensive or starting that close to the front. So with that said, guys, I think that wraps up our show for today. Thank you for tuning in as always and watching. We love doing this show. You guys are the reason why we do it. That and our love of NASCAR and of daily fantasy. With that said, I think it's time for us to say goodbyes. Adrian, say your goodbyes, bud.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We really appreciate your viewership. We've really seen our view counts rising. Just continue to like, share, and subscribe these videos and send them to your friends who play fantasy NASCAR and let them know where you get your picks from because we love to have everyone here. And like we always say, hit us up on Twitter before race time so we can get your questions answered. I really hope you guys enjoyed the Southern 500. It's probably one of the biggest races of the NASCAR season, just due to all the hype around it with all these throwback paint schemes. The exciting weekend. Owner points washing out the qualifying field. It should make for a very, very interesting race.
Yeah, I'm excited for this weekend. Labor Day weekend. I hope everybody enjoys their 3-day weekend this weekend. It's going to be Sunday night racing, which we don't get that too often in the Sprint Cup Series. So that'll be nice to watch. But also, too, I mean, my favorite part of this race is the history, the throwback schemes that are on all the cars. And there are some pretty sweet ones out there this week. By far, I mean, my favorite is the Hooters with Greg Biffle. But there are some other really, really good ones out there, too. So, but good luck this weekend, guys. Definitely, if you have any questions, hit us up. Our Twitter handles are on the front of the intro, so hit us up if you have any questions. But otherwise, good luck this weekend, and I hope our information has helped you guys win some money and take it down this weekend.
Yeah, just want to give a shout out to the labor movement and all the unions out there. You're why we get this extra 3-day holiday. Awesome. Thank you for everything you guys have done for us. And guys, let's make some money this weekend in NASCAR. Let's do this.
Hey, one other quick thing I wanted to throw out there too. I'm sorry, I should have said it when it was my turn. Is because we did pick Matt DiBenedetto this weekend. I just want to let you guys know that they are doing a contest because of their throwback paint scheme of the Orange Crush. If you hashtag I'm a Pepper, you get entered into a drawing for signed merchandise by the BK Racing team. So why not?
That's pretty cool. Yep. And like I was saying before, Liehr interrupted. If I'm not winning, hopefully I'm winning more money than you, but hopefully we're all winning money and making and having a good weekend. So with that said, bye.
Have a great weekend, everybody.